Greetings and welcome again to On Hit ASMR. Today we will be discussing Australia and New Zealand. I would like to welcome you if you are a new visitor and to welcome you back if you are a subscriber. Of course, if you aren't a subscriber, I would love it very much if you would join us and become one. I drop content mainly on a weekly basis, but I think I'm about to upgrade and start dropping content on a daily basis. So be sure to stay tuned in, and if you subscribe, you don't have to worry because you'll be notified when new material surfaces and new content. So today we'll be discussing Australia and the New Zealand area, but mainly focusing on Australia and its formation. So let's begin. In 1788, Great Britain founded Sydney, Australia, as a penal colony, that is, a place to send prisoners. By the end of the 20th century, Sydney had overcome its origins and earned a reputation as a fun and fascinating international city. Sydney is located on a deep, beautiful harbor that not only allows the city to function as a port, but also provides an arena for sailing and swimming. The mild climate there encourages such outdoor activities. In addition, Sydney has an increasingly diverse population. People who visit the city can view art and dine on food from many cultures. In 2000, Sydney hosted the Olympic Games, with a physical environment that favors sports and a culture shaped by immigrants. The city seemed a perfect site for an international athletic event. Australia, New Zealand, and Antarctica made up the last region to be explored by Europeans. Australia and New Zealand became British colonies, even though they were already inhabited by people with ancient cultures of their own. The original inhabitants of Australia were the Aboriginal people. They migrated to Australia from Asia at least 40,000 years ago. When Europeans arrived in Australia, there were an estimated 500 Aboriginal groups speaking perhaps 200 different languages. The Aboriginal people had complex religious beliefs and social structures, but a simple economy. They lived by hunting and gathering. New Zealand was settled first by the Maori, who had migrated there from the Polynesian area for more than 1,000 years ago. The Maori lived by fishing, hunting, and farming. During the 1600s and 1700s, several European explorers sailed in the coastal waters of New Zealand and Australia. Captain James Cook of Britain was the first to explore these two lands. New Zealand in 1769 and Australia's east coast in 1770. Antarctica was first discovered in 1820, which we'll cover in another video. European settlement. In 1788, Britain began to colonize Australia, at the time called New South Wales until 1820, as a place to send prisoners. Having a colony in Australia also gave Britain more Pacific naval bases. New Zealand was colonized by hunters and whalers from Europe, America, and Australia. No permanent settlements were established in Antarctica because of its cold climate. In Australia, the British colonists had violent conflicts with the Aborigines, many of whom were killed. Even greater numbers of native people died from diseases brought there by the Europeans. In New Zealand in 1840, the British and several Maori tribes signed the Treaty of Waitangi, giving Britain control over New Zealand. But the English and the Maori translations of the treaty differed. The English version gave Great Britain complete control. The Maori version gave Britain governorship. Disagreement over who owned the land helped cause the land wars that lasted from 1845 to 1847 and from 1860 to 1872. In addition, tens of thousands of Maoris died from diseases. Gold was discovered in 1851 and in New Zealand in 1861. Hundreds of thousands of people who dreamed of wealth flocked to the countries, but few miners grew rich. Most, however, stayed there. At this time, I would like to read to you some of the major cities of Australia. Hobart, Tasmania. We have Sydney, which is in New South Wales. Adelaide, which is in Australia. Canberra, which is the national capital of Australia, also located in New South Wales. Melbourne, located in Victoria. Perth, located in Western Australia. Darwin and Alice Springs, located in the Northern Territory. And lastly, Brisbane in Queensland. Other interesting things about Australia would be the kangaroo population or the marsupial population that lies there. Kangaroos everywhere. And Australia is mainly a very big desert-like landscape full of a lot of open spaces, aka the outback, hence its nickname. But Australia has a culture to its own. It may have once been settled by Great Britain, but Australians are definitely a people to its own. And fortunately, relations between the Aborigines and the newer European inhabitants have gotten a lot better over time. So, once again, if you have an opportunity to go to the land down under, you should do so. Have fun and enjoy Australia.